Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region, and welcome to this Free State Colorado interview. Today, I'm joined by Jason Bailey. His organization, Citizens for No New Debt, has been leading the charge against the mayor's bond package ballot measures. Well, Jason, I hope you are well, and thank you for joining me today.
Hey, doing well, and thank you so much for having me here today, Brandon. Appreciate it very much.
Well, Jason, ballots have been sent out, and Denver voters are currently in the process of voting. So, what are the most important reasons why Denver should vote no on 2A, B, C, D, and E?
Well, 2A, B, C, D, and E are five measures that Mayor Johnson and Denver City Council have on the Denver ballot coming up right now. And all five, as far as I'm concerned, excuse me, are the same thing because they're all asking for more government debt. And I just don't focus on what it is in particular that they're asking for. To me, it never makes sense to pay twice as much. So we're voting no on 2A, no on 2B, no on 2C, no on 2D, and no on 2E. I think the city dividing the $950 million, Brandon, into five different categories. I think that could help our cause a little bit because I think if you vote no, you're likely to vote no because government that makes no sense. It just doubles our expense, and you know this. And the yes vote is a selfish vote. So they're going to vote yes. I think a lot of people, and I'm speculating here, they're going to tend to vote yes because they want that that recreation center that's by their house or that park that's by their house, and then they might vote no on some of the other five measures. So I think we have a good chance of winning.
Well, Jason, I've seen some ads, online here talking about how this bond package here is going to really save Denver. It's going to fill in all the potholes and replace all the outdated infrastructure, and everything's going to be nice and sunny and rosy. What's the reality?
The reality is, excuse me, if you look at how much money we've given to the banks over the past year and the past 5 years, we are giving much more money to the banks every year for debt service than we're spending on the roads. The reason we don't have money for the roads is because we're giving way too much to the banks. That is counterproductive. So this story is just a broken record that these politicians play as though this debt's going to get us what we want. And they keep referring back to these bond packages every few years, going back decades. It's like, well, yeah, that's exactly why we have a budget deficit and we can't get our roads fixed properly. We're giving too much to the banks. We got to cut off the banks. It just makes no sense. We are not getting more with bonds. We're getting less. We're getting half as much because it's impossible to get the debt paid off and get the banks paid off without twice as much tax money. Revenue is the only way to revenue, Brandon. And whether that revenue is tax, fee, or fine, it's the only thing that pays for all things government is you and I and our tax money. And the idea that bonds pay for anything is just not true. They don't. Bonds are a document that's representing how much we owe to the banks and the bondholders, and we'll have a much better city when we get off that addiction to debt that these politicians keep relying on.
No, Jason, I'm really glad you brought that up. And I like how you phrase that in terms of the bonds don't actually pay for any of this. It's the taxpayers and the people paying, the citizens paying the government for all these projects. The bonds are just a
Yeah.
funding mechanism for the city to take out massive debt, which then has to be paid back at interest to the banks, costing future taxpayers even more money. So, and I think that's an important point there is that people who are voting no aren't necessarily opposed to these projects. They're voting no because of the financing, because this isn't the proper way to run a government to take on long-term debt over and over again. Eventually you go bankrupt, just like maxing out your credit card every month, right?
Exactly. And a lot of these projects are very needed, which is to me exactly why we need to get off debt so we have money to do these projects. It's just, it's counterintuitive, but the politicians are continuously gaslighting the voters, and they put signs up around town on these projects that say, hey, financed by such and such bonds, or actually they'll say something like paid for by such and such bonds, and that's just, it's just pure nonsense. That's like me going to the grocery store and saying, hey, Apple Pay paid for that. Apple Pay paid for my groceries this week. No, Apple Pay didn't pay for my groceries this week. I paid for it. Apple Pay is just a tool. A bond is just a tool. And the taxpayers pay every penny. And I think it's actually disrespectful to the voters when the politicians say these bonds will pay for this. I think it's disrespectful. If you go to lunch and you pay for lunch, you get credit for paying for lunch, and the taxpayers deserve credit for paying for everything because that's the only way all things government are paid for. The banks pay for nothing. You got to repay every penny and then twice as much.
Well, you've already touched on it slightly, but I noticed on your website you answer one of the most frequently asked questions, and that's what's your plan, right, Jason? So, instead of taking out this debt, instead of issuing these bonds to pay for these projects, how do you think the city of Denver should be paying with these for these projects?
Prioritizing. It's the only way anything gets bought. And when I get that question a lot, what's your plan? People will say to me, and I say, well, you are the plan. Every time you pay sales tax at a coffee shop or the grocery store, every time you pay that rent check, you're paying property tax. The owner of that property is taking your rent check and using that to pay property tax to the city of Denver. We're all paying our taxes. That's the only way government pays for everything is with that tax money, and the idea that we need a plan to pay for this. Well, the government's been collecting taxes for thousands of years now, and prioritizing is the only way to get anything done. For example, the Denver City Council, they decided they wanted that soccer stadium. And they found $70 million, Brandon, within minutes. Within minutes, they had $70 million because they prioritized it. See, that's the only thing, and that's the only thing that gets something paid for. So it's how do we prioritize? And unfortunately, what we're doing is we're prioritizing debt and debt service. If you look at the amount of money that we're giving to the banks, which the politicians never talk about, they talk about parks and recreation centers and this infrastructure and this bridge. They never talk about how much money is going to the bank. And if you were to talk about how much money is going to the bank, well, that would have to go to the top of the list because it's the biggest category. And prioritizing is the only way to get anything paid for.
No, that's a great point. You got to prioritize the most important projects for the people. I mean, like you said, we're all paying taxes to some government or another, and it's really that duty and responsibility of the government to spend that money wisely and make sure they're investing it into the community in a way that's going to, enrich our lives in terms of, supporting our businesses, making sure we're safe, making sure we can get to work, those types of
Yeah.
things, rather than all these little pet projects. And then, of course, you get in that trap, like you mentioned, this government debt trap where you end up
Yeah.
spending so much money on debt and more every year, and then eventually, yeah, eventually you run out of money.
Yeah, and that debt trap. We're just wasting that money every single year on the banks. And by the way, hey, we have our yard signs in. So if any of your viewers in Denver, if they want a yard sign, citizens for no new debt.org, send us an email, and we'll get you a yard sign. This is in the next couple, 2, 3 days. This is when we want to get those yard signs out there. Right now is perfect timing.
Definitely. No, that's so important. That's great to see. Really appreciate you leading the fight here and really standing up for Colorado taxpayers and Denver taxpayers, but ultimately, Denver being the capital city, the biggest city in the state, what happens in Denver affects so much of the rest of the state. So I think it is so important to really take that fight to Denver and really encourage people in the community to get one of your yard signs for sure.
Oh, well, hey, thank you so much. And we're focused on Denver right now. Our organization, Citizens for No New Debt, we are going to be focused throughout all of Metro Denver and Colorado. And we're gonna grow this organization with members, and we are going to push back on government debt. We are going to be for government debt, what these gun clubs, these gun organizations like the Second Syndicate and all of that are for gun rights. That organizing is required to push back, as you know, against our government. And if it wasn't for that organizing, the government, Colorado, buying and selling guns in Colorado would already be illegal, as you know. So that organizing is what we're going to do for government debt. My motto, my vision is that National Rifle Association. I want to be that big on debt, and without the NRA, we would have no gun rights. But we don't have that organization single focused on pushing back on government debt. It's tricky to get there. We need to get the members, but we'll get there. And so that's my vision of the type of organization that I'm building here.
Oh, nice. Well, no, and I think you brought up some great points there as well. There's so often a lack of advocates for the taxpayer, the lack of advocacy for the community. You have the government with all of their resources and a PR department they pay our taxpayer money to, telling voters to vote one way, and so often there's nobody speaking against them, nobody opposed to this. Our two statewide ballot measures this year, I looked at the Secretary of State data, and there's two issue committees in favor of these organizations raising and spending money to try and convince voters voters, but there's nobody opposed. There was no issue
Exactly,
committees
Brandon.
filed opposed, but we see that at the local level as well. So I think it is important, and it's something that has been kind of maybe neglected or not thought about or not really understood. So really appreciate your efforts there, Jason. What else? What else do people need to know?
Well, what you were saying about the government with their PR departments promoting the new debt and everything. So, I mean, take a quick minute to talk about we had to file a campaign finance complaint against the Vibrant Denver Bonds political committee because they are clearly using our tax money. They're receiving money from these organizations around Denver who are, receiving tax money. And the thing is, in Colorado, you cannot use public money for ballot measures, which kind of makes sense, doesn't it? So we filed this complaint. We'll see how this goes, but it should be. I don't know. I just see it pretty black and white that they're using public money, and that's not allowed. The city of Denver with their Vibrant Denver Bond political committee. So we'll see how that goes. But nonetheless, we're gonna win. November 4th, and that's what we're here to do. And by the way, if I could do a quick pitch here, I want to text. We've been texting voters. I want to text another 27,000 unaffiliated voters, registered voters here in the city of Denver. We have a database company we're working with that has phone numbers for these registered voters. Right now, we're paying about 10 cents per text message. So that's $2,700 we need to raise to get these additional 27,000 unaffiliated voters a text message about vote no on 2A through 2E. And these are registered voters here in the city of Denver. So we need to raise 2,700 in the next couple of days here. If you're watching this, please do take a look at our website. If you can contribute $50 to $100, whatever you can do to help us get more advertising out here this week, that would be great. Citizensfornonewdebt.org is the website there.
Oh, that's so important. Really glad to hear you're doing that, Jason. Really glad to hear about the text messaging. Everybody sees their text messages. They might not see an email or a flyer in the mail, but they definitely see their text messages for sure. And I'm so glad you brought up the public aspect of it too, because I did see an article, and I'll post this at freestatecolorado.com where this video will be really bringing up this idea of how I think it's the science, and cultural arts district and some different organizations here that are basically exist off taxpayers. They're different organizations that our tax money goes towards, and then they're using it to campaign, to run political, to donate to this political committee, to run ads, to take more tax money or use it for these specific projects. And it's like they're clearly going to benefit. But of course, like you said, you got the government advocating for it using our taxpayer money, and then other organizations using our taxpayer money to pay other people to keep advocating for this. So it's like, the people don't have a lot of chance almost. We don't have a lot of people standing up. So really appreciate what you're doing and
Well,
encourage
thank you,
people to go
man.
to your website. Yeah, and contribute there. And I really am happy to hear that you're in the fight for the long term and that you got some big aspirations there because I think it's so important. So Jason, any final thoughts here before we wrap it up for today?
Well, yeah, taking our tax money and spending that on advertising to get more debt so that you can trickle money up to the banks, just corporate welfare. And this is why I love the Independence Institute, because they're always pushing back on that corporate welfare. This corporate welfare is such a major problem. Our politicians, our government's taking our money and trickling it up. It's like, no, that's not your job to trickle our money up. It makes no sense, and this corporate welfare is just getting, with the city of Denver, it's getting just weird. I mean, they're buying hotels, and they're buying retail, and they're, supporting the billionaire Bronco owners. This corporate welfare is just creating this financial divide. And here's the thing: the worst form of corporate welfare, Brandon, is debt, because you take $1 of tax money and you turn it into 50 cents. You're giving half of all of our tax money to the bank for debt. Every project that you finance through debt. It just makes zero sense. With government debt, it's so different than business debt. All it does is double our expense. It is not business debt. It's a completely different animal, and we gotta get rid of the debt and just vote no all the way across 2A, 2B, C, D, E, and get out and vote and encourage your friends and family to vote, and let's get this done.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jason. I really appreciate your time today. Appreciate all your efforts and look forward to talking to you again soon. Good luck on everything.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Be well.